008 Questions and Answers about Embracing the Lotus Sutra. Part 2 of 2. Question. Since, by means of a single instance, one may surmise the nature of all, on hearing your brief remarks about the Lotus Sutra, I feel that my ears and eyes have been clearly opened for the first time. But how can one understand the Lotus Sutra so as to quickly reach the shore of enlightenment? I have heard it said that only one for whom the sun of wisdom shines unclouded in the great sky of the 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, and for whom the water of wisdom in the broad pond of the threefold contemplation in a single mind is clear and never muddied, has the capacity to carry out the practice of this sutra. But I have never exerted myself to study the various schools of the southern capital of Nara, and so I know nothing of the doctrines of the Treatise of the Stages of Yoga Practice and the Treatise of the Consciousness-Only Doctrine. And my eyes are equally unopened with respect to the teachings of the Northern Peak of Hei, and so I am quite confused about the significance of the work's great concentration and insight, and the profound meaning of the Lotus Sutra. With regard to the Tendai and Dharma characteristic schools, I am like a person with a pot over his head who is standing with his face to a wall. It would seem, therefore, that my capacity is not suited to the Lotus Sutra. What am I to do? Answer. It is the way of scholars this day to assert that only those who possess superior wisdom and strenuously exert themselves in the practice of the meditation have the capacity to benefit from the Lotus Sutra, and to discourage persons who lack wisdom from even trying. But this is in fact an utterly ignorant and erroneous view. The Lotus Sutra is the teaching that enables all living beings to attain the Buddha way. Therefore, the persons of superior faculties and superior capacity should naturally devote themselves to contemplation and to meditating on the law. But for the persons of inferior faculties and inferior capacity, the important thing is simply to have a heart of faith. Hence, the sutra states, quote, "If there are good men and good women who believe and revere it with pure hearts and harbor no doubts or perplexities, they will never fall into hell or the realm of hungry spirits or of beasts, but will be born in the presence of Buddhas of the 10 directions." Unquote. One should have complete faith in the Lotus Sutra and look forward to being born in the presence of the Buddhas in one's next life. To illustrate, suppose that a person is standing at the foot of a tall embankment and is unable to ascend, and suppose that there is someone on the top of the embankment who lowers a rope and says, "If you take hold of this rope, I will pull you up to the top of the embankment." If the person at the bottom begins to doubt that the other has the strength to pull him, or wonders if the rope is not too weak and therefore refuses to put forth his hand and grasp it, then how is he able to get to the top of the embankment? But if he follows the instructions, puts out his hand, and takes hold of the rope, then he can climb up. If one doubts the strength of the Buddha when he says, "I am the only person who can rescue and protect others," if one is suspicious of the rope held out by the Lotus Sutra when its teaching declares that one can gain entrance through faith alone, if one fails to chant the mystic law which guarantees that such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way, then the Buddha's power cannot reach one, and it will be impossible to scale the embankment of enlightenment. Lack of faith is the basic failing that causes a person to fall into hell. Therefore, the sutra states, if with regard to this sutra one should harbor doubt and fail to believe, one will fall at once into the evil path. When one has had the rare good fortune to be born a human being, and the further good fortune to encounter the teachings of Buddhism, how can one waste this opportunity? If one is going to take faith at all, then among all the various teachings of the Mahayana and the Hinayana, provisional and the true doctrines, one should believe in the one vehicle, the true purpose for which the Buddhas come into the world, and the direct path to attaining enlightenment for all living beings. If the sutra that one embraces is superior to all other sutras, then the person who can uphold its teachings must likewise surpass other people. That is why the Lotus Sutra states, a person who can accept and uphold this sutra is likewise foremost among all living beings. There is no question about these golden words of the great sage. And yet, people fail to understand this principle or to examine the matter, but instead seek worldly reputation or give way to suspicion and prejudice, thus forming the basis for falling into hell. All I wish is that you will embrace this sutra and cast your name upon the sea of the vows made by the Buddhas of the 10 directions. That you entrust your honor to the heaven, that is the compassion of the bodhisattvas of the 3 existences. One who thus embraces the Lotus Sutra will cause the heavenly gods, dragons, and the others of the 8 kinds of non-human beings, as well as all the great bodhisattvas, to become one's followers. Not only that, but the person's physical body, still in the process of forming causes for achieving Buddhahood, will acquire the Buddha eye of one who has perfected that cause. And this ordinary flesh that exists in the realm of the conditioned will put on the holy garments of the unconditioned. Then one need never fear the 3 paths or tremble before the 8 difficulties. One will ascend to the peak of the mountain of the 7 expedients and sweep away the clouds of the 9 worlds. Flowers will bloom in the garden of immaculate earth, and the moon will shine brightly in the sky of the Dharma nature. One can rely on the passage that promises, such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. And there is no questions about the Buddha's pronouncement that I am the only person who can rescue and protect others. The blessings gained by arousing even a single moment of faith in and understanding of the Lotus Sutra surpass those of practicing the 5 paramitas. And the benefit enjoyed by the 50th person who rejoices on hearing the Lotus Sutra is greater than that acquired by giving alms for 80 years. The doctrines of the immediate attainment of enlightenment far outshines the doctrines of other scriptures, and the pronouncements concerning the revelation of the Buddha's original enlightenment and his immeasurable lifespan are never found in any other teachings. Thus, it was that the 8-year-old dragon girl was able to come out of the vast sea and in an instant give proof of the power of this sutra. And superior practices, a bodhisattva of the essential teaching, emerged from beneath the great earth and thereby demonstrated the unfathomably long lifespan of the Buddha. This is the king of sutras, defying descriptions in words, the wonderful law that is beyond the mind's power to comprehend. To ignore the supremacy of the Lotus Sutra and assert that other sutras stands on a par with it is to commit the worst possible slander of the law, a major offense of the utmost gravity. No analogy could suffice to illustrate it. The Buddhas, for all their powers of magical transformation, could never finish describing its consequences, and the bodhisattvas, with all the wisdom at their command, could not fathom its immensity. Thus, the simile and parable chapter of the Lotus Sutra says, if I were to describe the punishments that fall on persons who slanders this sutra, I could exhaust a kalpa and never come to the end. This passage means that not even a whole kalpa could be time enough to explain the full gravity of the offense of a person who acts even once against the Lotus Sutra. For this reason, a person who commits this offense will never be able to hear the preaching of the Buddhas of the 3 existences, and will be cut off from the doctrines of the dust come ones, who are as numerous as the sands of the Ganges. Such a person will move from darkness into greater darkness. How could he escape the pain and sufferings of the great citadel of the Avicii hell? Could a thoughtful person fail to dread the prospect of a lengthy kalpas of misery? Thus, the sutra states, if this person on seeing those who read, recite, copy and uphold this sutra should despise, hate, envy or bear grudges against them, When his life comes to an end, he will enter the arbitrary hell. This passage means that a person who despises, looks down on, hates, envies, or holds a grudge against those who read and embrace the Lotus Sutra will fall into the great citadel of arbitrary hell after he dies. Who could help but fear these golden words of the great sage? And who could doubt the clear-cut pronouncements of the Buddha when he said, "Honestly discarding expedient means I will preach only the unsurpassed way"? However, people all turn their backs on these sutra passages, and the world as a whole is completely confused with regard to the principles of Buddhism. Why do you persist in following the teachings of evil friends? Tiantai said that to accept and put faith in the doctrines of evil teachers is the same as drinking poison. You should deeply consider this and beware. Taking a careful look at the world today, we see that although people declare that the law is worthy of respect, they all express hatred for the person who upholds it. You yourself seem to be very much confused as to the source from which the law springs. Just as all the different kinds of plants and trees come forth from earth, so all the various teachings of the Buddha are spread by persons. As Tiantai said, even during Buddha's lifetime, the law was reviewed by people. How then in the latter age can one say that the law is worthy of respect, but the person who upholds it is to be despised? Hence, if the law that one embraces is supreme, then the person who embraces it must be accordingly be foremost among all others. And if that is so, then to speak ill of that person is to speak ill of the law, just as to show contempt for the child is to show contempt for the parents. You should realize from this that the people of today speak words that in no way match what is in their hearts. It is as though they were to beat their parents with a copy of the classic of filial piety. When they know that, unseen by others, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were observing them, how can they fail to be ashamed of such actions? The pains of hell are frightful indeed. Beware of them. Beware of them. When you look at those of superior capacity, do not disparage yourself. The Buddha's true intention was that no one, even those of inferior capacity, be denied enlightenment. Conversely, when you compare yourself with persons of inferior capacity, do not be arrogant and overproud. Even persons of superior capacity may be excluded from enlightenment if they do not devote themselves wholeheartedly. One may think fondly of one's native village, but paying no visits and with no particular reason to go, one in time gives up the idea of returning. Or one may pine for a particular person, but with no hope of winning that person's love or having exchanged no vows, one abandons the thought of waiting. So, in like manner, we neglect the journey to pure land of Eagle Peak, though it surpasses in grandeur the palaces of nobles and high ministers, and moreover is quite easy to reach. We fail to behold the gentle and benign figure of the Buddha, who has declared, "I am a father to you," though we ought surely to present ourselves before him. Should we not grieve at this, until our sleeves are drenched with tears and our heart consumed by regret? The color of the clouds in the sky as twilight falls, the waning light of the moon when dawn is breaking, these things make us ponder. In the same way, whenever events remind us of life's uncertainty, we should fix our thoughts on the existence to come. When we view the blossoms of spring or the snow on a winter morning, we should think of it even on evenings when winds bluster and gathering clouds tumble across the sky. We should not forget it, even for an instant. Life lasts no longer than the time the exhaling of one breath awaits the drawing of another. At what time, what moment should we ever allow ourselves to forget the compassionate vow of the Buddha, who declared, "At all times I think to myself, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way and quickly acquire the body of the Buddha?" On what day or month should we permit ourselves be without the sutra that says, "If there are those who hear the law, then not one will fail to attain Buddhahood"? How long can we expect to live on as we have? from yesterday to today, or from last year to this year. We may look back over our past and count the years we have accumulated, but when we look ahead into the future, who can for certain number himself among the living for another day, or even for an hour? Yet, though one may know that the moment of one's death is already at hand, one clings to arrogance and prejudice, to worldly fame and profit, and fails to devote oneself to chanting the mystic law. Such an attitude is futile beyond description. Even though the Lotus Sutra is called the teaching that enables all living beings to attain the Buddha way, how could a person such as this actually attain it? It is said that even the moonlight will not deign to shine on the sleeve of an unfeeling person. Moreover, as life does not go beyond the moment, the Buddha expounded the blessings that come from a single moment of rejoicing on hearing the Lotus Sutra. If 2 or 3 moments were required, this could no longer be called the original vow of the Buddha endowed with great impartial wisdom, the single vehicle of the teaching that directly reveals the truth and leads all living beings to attain Buddhahood. As for the time of its propagation, the Lotus Sutra spreads during the latter age, when the Buddha's law is about to perish. As for what capacity of persons it is treated to, it can save even those who commit the 5 cardinal sins, or who slander the correct teaching. Therefore, you must be guided by the intent of the Lotus Sutra, which is the immediate attainment of enlightenment, and never give yourself up to the mistaken views that stem from doubts or attachments. How long does a lifetime last? If one stops to consider, it is like a single night's lodging at a wayside inn. Should one forget that fact and seek some measure of worldly fame and profit? Though you may gain them, they will be mere prosperity in a dream, a delight scarcely to be prized. You would do better simply to leave such matters to the karma formed in your previous existences. Once you awaken to the uncertainty and transience of this world, you will find endless examples confronting your eyes and filling your ears. Vanished like clouds or rain, the people of past ages have left nothing but their names. Fading away like dew, drifting far off like smoke, our friends of today too disappear from sight. Should you suppose that you alone can somehow remain forever like the clouds over Mount Mikasa? The spring blossoms depart with the wind. Maple leaves turn red in autumn showers. All are proof that no living thing can stay for long in this world. Therefore, the Lotus Sutra counsels us, nothing in this world is lasting or firm, but all are like bubbles, foam, heats shimmer. At all times, I think to myself, how can I cause living beings to gain entry into the unsurpassed way? These words express the Buddha's deepest wish to enable both those who accept the Lotus Sutra and those who oppose it to attain Buddhahood. Because this is his ultimate purpose, those who embrace the Lotus Sutra for even a short while are acting in accordance with his will. And if they act in accordance with the Buddha's will, they will be repaying the debt of gratitude they owe to the Buddha. The words of the sutra, which are full of compassion as a mother's love, will then find solace. And the cares of the Buddhas who said, I am the only person who can rescue and protect others, will likewise be eased. Not only will Shakyamuni Buddha rejoice, but because the Lotus Sutra is the ultimate purpose for which all Buddhas appear in the world, the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 existences will likewise rejoice. As Shakyamuni said, if one can uphold it even for a short while, I will surely rejoice, and so will the other Buddhas. Not only will the Buddhas rejoice, but the gods also will join in their delight. Thus, when the great teacher Dengyo lectured on the Lotus Sutra, great Bodhisattva Hachiman presented him with a purple surplice. And when the Honorable Kuya recited the Lotus Sutra, the great deity of Masuo Shrine was able to gain protection from the cold wind. For this reason, when praying that the 7 disasters will instantly vanish and the 7 blessings will instantly appear, this sutra is the most effective of all. That is because it promises that its votaries will enjoy peace and security in their present existence. And when offering prayers to avert the disaster of foreign invasion and internal revolt, nothing can surpass this wonderful sutra, because it makes certain that persons who embrace it will suffer no decline or harm within the area of 100 yohanas. Nonetheless, the way that prayers are offered in our present age is the exact opposite of what it ought to be. Prayers today are based upon the provisional teachings, which were intended for propagation in previous ages, rather than upon the secret law of the highest truth, which is intended for propagation in the latter age. To proceed in this way is like trying to make use of last year's calendar, or to employ a crow for the kind of fishing that only a cormorant can do. This situation has come about solely because the error-bound teachers of the provisional teachings are accorded high honor, while the teacher enlightened to the true doctrine has not been duly recognized. How sad to think that this rough gem, such as was presented by Pian Ho to the kings Wen and Wu, should find no place of acceptance. How joyful, though, that I have obtained in this life the priceless gem concealed in the top knot of the wheel-turning king, for which Shakyamuni Buddha appeared in this world. What I am saying here has been fully attested to by the Buddhas of the 10 directions, and is no mere idle talk. Therefore, knowing that the Lotus Sutra says it will face much hostility in the world and be difficult to believe, how can you retain even a trace of disbelief when it says, such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way? How can you refuse to become a Buddha? Since the remotest past up until now, you have merely suffered in vain the pain of countless existences. Why do you not, if only this once, try planting the wonderful seeds that lead to eternal and unchanging Buddhahood? Though at present you may taste only a tiny fraction of the everlasting joys that await you in the future, surely you should not spend your time thoughtlessly coveting worldly fame and profit, which are as fleeting as a bolt of lightning or the morning dew. As the Taskamwan teaches, there is no safety in the threefold world. It is like a burning house. And in the words of a bodhisattva, all things are like a phantom, like a magically conjured image. Everywhere other than the capital of tranquil light is a realm of suffering. Once you leave the haven of inherent enlightenment, what is there to bring you joy? I pray that you will embrace the mystic law, which guarantees that people will enjoy peace and security in their present existence and good circumstances in future existences. This is the only glory that you need to seek in your present lifetime, and in the action that will draw you toward Buddhahood in your next existence. Single-mindedly chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo and urge others to do the same. That will remain as the only memory of your present life in this human world. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nichiren. Background. Although there are different opinions concerning the date of this letter, it is generally accepted that Nichiren Daishonin wrote it in the third month of the third year of Kōchō, 1263, shortly after he had been pardoned and had returned to Kamakura following 2 years of exile on the Izu Peninsula. The Daishonin was then 42 years old. As the title indicates, this work discusses the significance of embracing the Lotus Sutra and is written in the form of 5 questions and answers. In the first section, the questioner asks, which teaching should one practice in order to attain Buddhahood quickly? In answer, the Daishonin declares that the Lotus Sutra enables all people to achieve Buddhahood without exception, and is therefore the highest of all sutras. In the second section, the questioner objects to such exclusive emphasis on the Lotus Sutra as narrow-minded. The Daishonin replies that his assertion of the sutra's supremacy among all the Buddhist teachings is based on the Buddha's own words as they appear in the sutras themselves, and not on the arbitrary theories or commentaries of later scholars and teachers. When the questioner points out that the other sutras also identify themselves as the foremost sutra, or the king of sutras, the Daishonin explains that such statements are relative. Only the Lotus Sutra declares itself to be supreme among all the sutras preached in the past, now being preached, or to be preached in the future. Next, the Daishonin says that Shakyamuni Buddha did not reveal the truth during the first 40 years and more of his preaching, and that only the Lotus Sutra is the true way that leads to Buddhahood. The questioner then asks about an interpretation put forth by the Dharma characteristic school, which claims that the Lotus Sutra is a provisional teaching, expounded solely for the purpose of leading to Buddhahood the people of the two vehicles, voice hearers and cause awakened ones, and not for the sake of the Bodhisattvas, who had already gained benefit through the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings. The Daishonin acknowledges that the Lotus Sutra was indeed expounded chiefly for the people of the two vehicles, whose capacity for supreme enlightenment had been denied in the earlier Mahayana sutras. However, he continues, this does not mean that the Lotus Sutra is a provisional teaching, or that it benefits only the people of the two vehicles. Rather, by singling out those of the two vehicles for whom Buddhahood is especially difficult to attain, and asserting that even these people can become Buddhas through the power of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni made clear that this sutra is the one vehicle that opens the way to Buddhahood for all people. In the last section, the questioner, now convinced, asks how one should embrace the Lotus Sutra in order to reach enlightenment quickly. Nichiren Daishonin replies that one need not master the principle of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, or perfect the threefold contemplation in a single mind, as the Tendai scholars asserted. Rather, the essential thing is simply to have a heart of faith in the sutra. Faith, he explains, is the fundamental cause for attaining enlightenment, and to slander the Lotus Sutra and its votary is an act that invites indescribable misery. A concluding passage of great poetic beauty stresses the fleeting nature of human existence. To be born as a human and, moreover, to encounter the supreme teaching of Buddhism are rare opportunities. Rather than wasting one's brief yet precious life in the pursuit of worldly fame and profit, the Daishonin says one should dedicate oneself to faith in the Lotus Sutra and so attain the everlasting joy of enlightenment. He declares that to chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo oneself and to enable others to do the same are the most important tasks in this present existence.